All right, and we are live. Hello, everyone. This is Kevin, your failed journalist, and we are doing something that we haven't done on this channel for a very long time. We're actually going to be doing a live stream interview with someone. Now, for those of you who are not aware of what's going on, I wrote this. You may have noticed what's going on if you saw my blog, yourcomicbookguide.com, and I wrote this article for the site called my site, yourcomicbookguide.com. And the headline is admittingly a little abrasive. It's a little antagonistic, I will admit, but it's called Voice Actor Brian Drummond, who plays DBZ villain, is just as awful in real life. Now, of course, full clarification. It's a catchy headline. That's why I did it. I am hesitant to call the actual person truly awful in real life. But the more this situation played out, the more I was not entirely happy with him. So here's what happened in my words, and then we're going to get on with the interview, is that there was a interaction on Twitter between Brian Drummond and a fan, and the fan wanted to do something nice for Mr. Drummond. And while Mr. Drummond was courteous at first and reciprocative of what was being asked, eventually it spiraled really fast, and it all ended in like a huge snafu on Twitter with him calling the guy out and the guy getting a lot of hate. And so we're going to talk to the fan that he publicly chewed out on Twitter, kind of find out all the details of what happened and what happened afterwards and how people feel about it. And so with that, I would like to welcome, by his Twitter alias, Mr. Sarcasm. Hey, Mr. Sarcasm.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going fine. So before we started live streaming, you said you don't normally do live stream stuff. So how are you feeling right now?
Well, I'm actually a little calmer now that I've actually gotten used to it. But yeah, I'm just a slight nervous.
Oh, all right. So, well, we'll try to make it as not nervous as possible. So first of all, and when I say, can you tell us what you do? I don't mean what you do for like your job, but like, you have a very interesting relationship with voice actors and people who I actually find to be personal heroes of mine. We were talking about many of the people that you had met and talked to. Can you tell the audience what it is you do for voice actors and how you've accumulated some of these relationships?
Well, it started out about 5 years ago. I was just making photo edits, being nice, and voice actress Cynthia Kranz noticed it, and she asked me to start making them for her. And then she started sharing my work around, and then it got the attention of other voice actors like Richard Epcar and, et cetera, et cetera. And back then, my edits were terrible. I mean, I don't know why people wanted them. But yeah, it just started going on from there, and I just improved the work as I went. And I started doing things like, well, instead of just pictures, how about shirts and mugs and stuff like that?
And that would be artwork like you see right now in the background. Let's see here. Judging by the fact that Edward is on this, I'm assuming this is artwork you did for Vic Mignogna.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I just made him a mug using this picture.
Okay, so what you do, and you actually make fan art. It looks like your primary thing is collages of all the characters that a voice actor or actress has made. And then you offer them as T-shirts to people, like to the voice actors?
Shirts, mugs, pretty much, yeah.
And how do most voice actors respond to such gifts?
A lot of them are saying, yes, 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 thank you. Then there's voice actors like Vic himself, who was like, oh, no, I don't want you to go through the trouble. And then I'm the type who's like, I'll just send it to his fan mail anyway.
Oh.
But and he always says, don't put yourself out for me, please. And I'm like, it's no problem at all. But most of the time, 95% of the time, it's always, yes, please, thank you so much. Then they post or do a video saying thank you.
Oh, neat. So for the most part, you would say that the reception to getting a gift like this has been positive.
About 95% of the time, yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, why wouldn't it be positive? I mean, this is definitely a huge form of flattery that you would go through the time to make the drawing and to reach out to them and put it on a t-shirt or a mug in some cases and actually send it out free of charge. You're not asking for anything in return. It's it's basically a labor of love. It's a way for you to say like, hey, I really enjoy your work. Thank you for what you do. I'd like to thank you in my own special way.
Yep, it's pretty much, I'm thanking them for the many years of entertainment they gave me. My teenage years sucked.
Yeah, well, here's a little news flash. A lot of teenage years sucked. In fact, I've actually come to the conclusion, this is a little side note, that if you had a good teenage years, chances are you're miserable in your adult years. And since the adult years last a heck of a lot longer, it's like, well, I'd rather get my sucky teenage years out of the way and live a better adult year life. That's my thoughts anyway. So anyway, so one of the voice actors you decided to reach out to was Brian Drummond, who, full disclosure for anyone watching this, I actually am a fan of Brian Drummond. I actually, in my opinion, Brian Drummond is my Vegeta. I even like him better than the Japanese voice actor, which I know is sacrilegious because of Japanese voice actor is really good, but I really like Brian Drummond. I've actually never liked Chris. I don't think Chris Sabat's a great actor, if I'm being honest. He does a few things well, but I never liked him as Vegeta. So it brings me no pleasure to have to do this story. But and Brian Drummond has also done like Zex in Gundam Wing and Alan in Escaflowne, which I'm going to say, poor guy, like all of his dub work keeps getting redubbed by Funimation voice actors. Like that's got to be rough. But anyway,
hopefully Wing doesn't get touched.
Yeah, no, I don't think Wing's going to get touched because Right Stuff International doesn't have an interest in redubbing it. And also, I think the thing that necessitated the redub of the Escaflowne dub was because they got the uncut masters, and so you couldn't dub those scenes, the deleted scenes, without either having like the voice actor sound different, or it would be more seamless if they just redubbed the whole thing. So I think that's what happened there. But anyway, so like other voice actors, you've enjoyed his work for years, and you reach out to him and offer him a shirt with your artwork on it. Now, what was his initial response to that request?
Well, the shirt, he said no, because it feels like he's being narcissistic and he's trying to show off.
Which, in all fairness, I could understand that point. I mean, I don't know if I would have personally taken that away, but I could see how someone would. It's kind of, so some people might be kind of weird, like wearing a shirt, like, see, I voice all these. These are my characters. I could understand why some would have that position. So I'm not knocking him for that. But what happened after he basically said no to the shirt?
I said, well, maybe I'll try something else. And then I thought, I'll try the mug thing because that's my newest thing right now. So I put together the mug, and then you've pretty much seen what happened after that. Yeah,
well, and we're going to also show people what happened. Here's a better view of the blog. And of course, it's total self-promotion, I know, but I say like, so this is the mug. I mean, we can't show the whole picture because I wanted to screen capture this with the snipping tool, because frankly, when things like this happen, I don't trust people to not try to hide the evidence, if you will. But this, you can kind of see the mug, there's, Ryuk and Knuckles, again, nice drawing. And here it is. You say, you said no to the shirt, but would you turn down a coffee mug with your character on display? And he responded, now you're talking, with a smiley face. Like, he seemed pretty receptive to this. Like, and so then you responded, DM me somewhere to ship it, and I'll have it made and sent out. So, it was looking like this was going to be a happy ending for everyone involved. But then, for those who do not know what happened, well, this happened. Mr. Drummond, and the only reason I'm saying Mr. Drummond instead of Brian is because his conduct is not that of a gentleman, so I don't want to be on a first name basis with him. But, he writes this really, really odd tweet and I don't know why he would make this public, but he says, it's nice that you've enjoyed my work, Tim, but I won't accept this gift. I just had a look at your timeline, meaning the Twitter timeline, And I was so very sorry to see numerous offensive tweets and retweets. What you say has consequences, which I think that was very ironic of him to say in context of all this, but we'll get to that later. And then he says, hashtag believe women, hashtag BLM, hashtag Trump out 2020. Now, for me personally, ignoring the hashtags for just a second, because I don't disagree with all of them, just to let everyone know. What was, and we see your Twitter response, but what was internally like when you first read that? What was your reaction to getting a reply like that after basically things have been going well? And he was like, yeah, the mug sounds great. And you're like, okay, hey, DM me and I'll have it sent to you. And then you get this very publicly. What was your reaction and how did you feel?
Well, at first I didn't understand. I was like, well, do I post things that are racially insensitive? I put on there, I replied right away saying, well, you do know that I support the late George Floyd. I wanted justice for him. And I showed him the screenshot of what I posted, on the day that the incident happened to that poor young man. And he didn't reply. And I was just going to be like, well, I'll just drop it, let it go. And then before anything could happen, all my followers just jumped right in.
Like when you say they jumped right in, like they jumped in on you or they jumped in on him?
They jumped in on him. They said the very first person that responded was a very good friend of mine named Zero Resurrected. And he said, so you just don't think he could be good enough to be a fan unless he follows your beliefs? And, I don't remember all exactly what was said, but just a second after that, all my followers just jumped in on him. And me, I was just going to let it go. I didn't retweet it or anything. I was like, just move
well,
on.
I retweeted it. I know a lot of people retweeted it.
Yeah, I think it has over 250 retweets.
Yeah, well, at the time of this screen capture, it had 132 retweets. Now, yeah. So after all your fans jumped on him, like, did his fan base jump on you?
Oh yeah.
And like, what were some of the things that were like said or written?
I remember one guy specifically said, I wouldn't want a gift from from an I Stand With Vic stand anyway, because I wouldn't want them to know my address. They're freaks and all this and that. And then another guy said that, I looked through his Twitter too, and it was unbelievably racist.
Which is interesting because, in fact, we will stop sharing this for just 1 second. And if you don't mind, we will go to, if anyone's listening to this on the podcast style, I know you can't exactly see what's going on, but we're on his Twitter page. And, okay, first of all, you do stand with Vic, and, a lot of people do. A lot of people don't, but a lot of people do. But one thing I've noticed when I was looking at it is you retweet a lot of moments from the Boondocks. And so you also had this tweet. Did anyone ever watch Blank Man? If not, I recommend it. Damon Wayans is a comic genius, which, full disclosure, I don't like that movie very much. But
I love it.
Yeah, well, clearly you do. But I'm kind of looking at this, and it's like, this doesn't look like a recommendation one would make if someone was racist. If you were racist, you probably wouldn't call Damon Wayans a comic genius. So do you understand where the racist comments were coming from?
Honestly, I think it has to do with maybe something that I retweeted. Somebody asked me, said, well, why did you retweet this conspiracy that Floyd faked his death? And I said, I didn't think that was the conspiracy. I told somebody, I said, I thought that the cop killed somebody else that same day, and it was a picture of a different person.
Oh, okay. So in terms of, do you know if that's what got Ryan Drummond did Brian ever, well, we're probably getting ahead of ourselves here, but so let's take a step back. After this blew up, what happened with Brian Drummond afterwards?
Well, it took him at least a full day to DM me, and he wanted to talk about it. And, he kind of explained why he couldn't take it, which I promised I wouldn't clarify exactly why, because I said I wouldn't do any screenshots. But he said that he doesn't dislike me or anything else. And he also said that it's not that he doesn't really know Vic. He just is a strong, firm believer of the Believe Women hashtag thing.
So, without getting into the whole exactly what the problem was, it sounds like the issue was that you support Vic, and would you, without violating anything, would you say that that is a larger reason above everything else, or a close to the main reason? Are you allowed to say any of that?
I really don't know, because he just, the way he said it, I don't really know Vic, but I believe in the Believe Women hashtag, and I seen that you retweeted some things James Woods said, and I'm like, well, and
Yeah. Well, James Woods can be a little far out there, I will admit. Still a good actor. I mean, as we learn through situations like this, someone can have great work and can not be the best people in real life.
Well,
so
I think James is still, like, James Woods is mad because, I think he still got blacklisted over, his beliefs in politics.
Well, I don't know if I could really get into that. I will say the last thing I saw James Woods in something, he was a teacher in the Ashton Kutcher Steve Jobs movie. And when I saw him, it's like, oh, James Wood has a role again. Nope, it was a cameo. It was like, you hired James Wood to be on screen for like less than a minute. Like, why would you do that? This is an Oscar-nominated actor. Like, you could get anyone to do that role. But so I can kind of understand why Woods would be disillusioned with the system if, like, all these years and this is what you're getting. But all right. So anyway, let's get to this private conversation you had with Drummond. And I know that I'm going to just say something, and I'm going to word it in a way where it doesn't put you in a bind, but Brian Drummond made this a public matter. Like, I in my opinion, he could have easily reached out to you privately to explain why he is not going to accept the gift. If he had done it that way, everything would have been cool, right?
Yeah.
There would have been nothing on Twitter. You wouldn't have said anything. And actually, the fact that he kind of made your life a living hell for a few days and then wanted to resolve it privately so he's calling you to resolve it privately. And it's like, okay, I'm going to apologize, but I don't want you to repeat what I said. I don't want this to be screen captured. I don't want it out on the internet. I mean, what are you thinking when you hear things like that, knowing that this guy didn't have to make this public in the first place? He chose to make it public, but now he wants to, resolve it privately. What's going through your mind in that situation?
Well, I pretty much told him what I'm going to tell you. It would have been nice if you could have done that in the first place.
Yeah.
And then, because I've got tons of your fans attacking me, calling me racist when I've never said a racist thing in my life.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So, and in that conversation, did he, aside from apologizing, did he like indicate that he would try to make it right, that he would say, I'll tell my fans to back off and I'll tell people that we worked it out and the situation is done and there's no reason to fight anymore? Like, did he make any sort of promise to basically get his fans off your back?
No, I hate to say it, but no, he didn't.
He didn't.
He just said he'd like to forget the situation happened.
Well, obviously he would, in my opinion, of course, my opinion only, you don't have to agree with me publicly. I think, of course, he would want to move on because he made a fool of himself, in my opinion. In my opinion, he did not handle this right. Now, I don't know exactly what inspired him to write this response publicly. I'm assuming to a certain extent, just because I know how Twitter works, I'm assuming someone that he was a fan of his dug through your Twitter. They found tweets that, whether they were racist or not, could be construed in a certain way if you really wanted to stretch it. Or heck, maybe even they didn't. Maybe they just found that you supported Vic and they made a lot of assumptions. Like, one of the things that I find especially interesting is that he hashtagged Trump out 2020. And I browsed your Twitter for a while, and I didn't see any, for the most part, deliberately pro-Trump stuff. I did see a post where you shared a picture of Joe Biden, and at a Joe Biden rally or whatever it was, there was a KKK member there, and I did see that. But I didn't see any pro-Trump stuff. First of all, no judgments. Is there pro-Trump stuff on your Twitter?
Honestly, I don't think so. I mean, I've had the Twitter up for about a year now, and I normally mock the guy when I'm on Twitter. Like, you'll see a picture of his face plastered over Lord Farquaad when the pandemic was really bad, and he was talking about opening the economy. I put, "Some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make," and I just thought it was,
Yeah. No, that actually,
have...
the sad thing is I could easily see that being like a spoof now that you mentioned that. So for my research, I didn't know if you were pro-Trump or not, but the fact that I wasn't sure at the end of the day made me wonder, like, well, what on earth did he see about this? And I, of course, looked through your Twitter. You seem to be a fan of the Boondocks and Black comedians and everything like that. You don't seem to be against African Americans. You do stand with Vic, although, as I've been telling people, one of the reasons the I stand with Vic thing exists is because the evidence, like the actual evidence, is extremely shaky. And I come from a position of believe, but verify. Like, okay, an accusation comes along. Obviously, you take it seriously. You obviously investigate, but you verify first. And if you can't verify, then you move on. Which so far, and I know that Funimation says that, they have their like little, investigation, and maybe they do have evidence, but they haven't made it public. And so we as, outsiders can't verify. But that being said, I don't understand where the Black Lives Matter or Trump out 2020 is coming from, when everything I've seen on your Twitter doesn't really suggest that you're against Black Lives Matter, nor does it suggest explicitly that you're a Trump supporter.
I honestly don't know.
So, so this is like a very this is just a very strange presumption to make, in my opinion. And I don't know, but I think what happened was that basically someone saw something, they hashtagged him. And this is like one of the problems with Twitter, is that when you stand for or against one thing, they assume automatically that you're this type of person, and that if you support this, then you automatically support everything in this category, and therefore you're a problem. And because it's Twitter and you don't want to be canceled, you have to speak out about it. And I assume that's why he did this. Now, I will say, as I was writing this article, I did reach out to Brian Drummond to see what his take on this was, to see if maybe we are misunderstanding something. And his reaction, because he doesn't have like a personal site, he just has the Twitter. That's the only way you can reach out to him. And as you can see, he blocked me. I reached out for a comment, and rather than comment on the article, he just decided to block me. Now, first question, has he blocked you?
No, but he followed me so he could talk to me, and then he unfollowed me after we got done talking.
Okay, and he probably won't block you because that would probably bring the story up all over again.
I
But
mean, if he does, I won't make it public or anything like that. I mean, it'll be no skin off my nose.
yeah, yeah. Well, and that shows that you definitely have character that you would, because here's the thing, like you're showing him courtesies that he never showed you. Like from my outside perspective, and if he had done this, we wouldn't be talking right now, probably. He should have reached out to you privately to begin with, should have explained privately why he wasn't accepting the mug, and that would have been it. But instead, he decided to make it a public spectacle. Then it is nice that he reached out to you privately, but he didn't want you screen capturing the conversations, which would have basically, I think you would have looked much better than he would had you done that. And you accepted his apology, and yet he didn't go out of his way to say that things have been fixed and, hey, don't harass this guy. I don't think he didn't take down any of these responses, did he?
No, they're still up.
Yeah, because he has to grandstand as far as I'm concerned. So he has treated you pretty horribly in this whole situation, and you are showing him a lot more respect than, in my opinion, he deserves.
Well, I'm just that kind of person, I guess.
Yeah, no, and it's good that you are. Now, on a personal level, having gone through this, does this taint your opinion of the works? Do you think going forward you're going to be as excited to watch something that he's in?
Well, I'm always going to remember what he said, but I always have this mentality where I separate art from artists because, I'm in the middle of rewatching Gundam Wing right now, and it's like, well, at first I didn't want to rewatch it at all, but, after he apologized and whatnot, it's a little easier. I just, separated the situation from it, and I'm not going to let it affect, the anime that I really love. Because Dragon Ball, Gundam Wing, and other stuff, it's all my favorite animes of all time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's kind of... And I take it you're more of a dub person, you're not a sub person.
Well, I am a bit of both. I mean, I watch stuff subbed if I have to, but I have a kid, so it's easier that I don't have to keep looking at the screen, because he gets into stuff. It's better that I hear it and I don't have to rewind it.
Wow. I see. Yeah. My stance has changed a little over the years. I mean, I used to be pretty anti-dub myself, but then you have to keep in mind, I was growing up during the dubs of Card Captors and the original Dragon Ball Z and One Piece. And I lived in I was young during the 4Kids generation. So dubs were pretty toxic, but dubs have gotten so much better now where it's like, okay, outside of like voice preferences at this point, there's almost no difference as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I grew up on, and you'll laugh, and this is the dub I prefer, the 1989 dub to Akira.
Well, that wasn't a terrible dub, though.
I mean, it's the VHS tape I had, and I always watched that one. I mean, no offense against the new 2001 version. I just prefer Cam Clark and Jan Radson as Tetsuo and Kaneda.
Yeah, well, doesn't the Blu-ray like have both the dub tracks on it though?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's nice that they let you have that decision. That you can, and yeah, I totally understand because I mean, I like grew up on the streamlined dub of the Castle of Cagliostro, where they called Lupin Wolf for copyright reasons. And manga did like a new dub with it. And here's the thing, the new dub is superior in every way technically, and yet I just kind of prefer the old dub. I'm used to those voices. Same thing with the My Neighbor Totoro dub. I know the Disney dub with the Fanning sisters is much more accurate, but I prefer the Carl Macy dub. It's just, that's what I grew up with.
Yeah, I mean, Bob Bergen, he was a great Lupin.
Yeah, and I really liked I don't think they've ever gotten as good of Zenigata as whoever was in the streamlined dub. I think he was Zenigata. In fact, one of the things I really appreciate about that dub is how normal everyone sounds, because even the manga dub fell into the trap of, well, they look like this, so they should sound like this. I kind of like how the streamlined dub, they sounded normal. Like,
I do like that some of the veteran voice actors are in the streamlined series, like Steve Kramer.
mm-hmm.
He's in the Akira dub and stuff, and he's in Naruto as the third Hokage. So,
Yeah, so you're definitely familiar with the voice actors, and yeah, you know the voice actors way better than I. I mean, I know the voice actors pretty well, but like, boy, you can just remember what they were in and cross-reference them. That's great.
If I see their face, I wouldn't know them, but if I hear them, it's like, yep, I know who plays that.
Right. No, I can definitely see that. Now, interestingly, like, let's talk about the DBZ dub for like a minute, since we're, just so this isn't all completely dour. I have a very complicated relationship with the DBZ dub, because, I mean, of course, I grew up with the Ocean cast, so, Brian Drummond and Andrew Francis and Ian, I forget his last name, but, Ian. So I remember Scott McNeil. What happened to him? Like, he used to do so much voice work, and he was good.
Oh, he's my favorite Piccolo.
Yeah, no, he's like, in my opinion, like, I think the Ocean dub nailed the English voices. They really nailed the English voices. It was not a great dub, though. There was a censorship, there was a change in music, there was the parachutes, if you will. So it wasn't.
I can see their parachutes.
Yeah, but I always wanted, like, if they could have these but then, like, Pioneer did those 3 movies, which were much more faithful, and it used the original movie music and everything. So when you watch projects like those, it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, these voice actors, they really were ready to do Dragon Ball Z justice, and they really didn't, which was Funimation's fault, or Saban's, whoever it was. And so when Funimation changed the voice actors, like, the dub got so much worse. I didn't like the voices at all. I thought the new music was atrocious. Now, as years have gone by, I've gotten used to the voices, and I actually think the Dragon Ball Kai dub, I mean, geez, had the Dragon Ball Z dub been like that when it premiered, I would never have any issues with it. But I know a lot of people who, like, still watch the old dub of Dragon Ball Z, because it's like, oh, I grew up with it and I have memories of it. But that's one of those rare situations, like, yeah, but the Japanese version is a much better product in every single way.
I have one main issue with the Kai dub.
Okay.
It's Gohan's voice.
Yeah.
I love Colleen as a voice actress, but her Gohan isn't very good. I prefer Stephanie Nadamli's Gohan.
Right. And didn't she leave Funimation because of some things that happened with Chris Sabat, allegedly?
Well, that was the rumor. I mean, I know her personally, too. Her and I are friends on Facebook and whatnot, and she told me a few things that happened. I don't know if it's true or not, so I'm not going to say it is, because
right, and we don't want to be spreading gossip. We only want to.
We don't want to be the Kick Vic, just say, oh, she said it must be true.
Yeah, but I do find it interesting, just a little interesting, that when those accusations came up, there did not seem to be that big of a stir online about it. Like, well, wait a minute, I thought we believed women. Like, this is a woman, like, and she's saying something against Sabat. Maybe that's worth looking into. Like, I'm just for, like, if there's a big bizarre thing about what happened with Kick Vic and everything, is that so many people did not want to go to trial, which my personal opinion was like, yeah, send it to trial, not necessarily because I want Vic to win per se, but because it's like, yeah, let's get the evidence out there. Let's see what the investigation said, and let's let a judge and a jury decide whether or not he actually is guilty. Because if he isn't guilty, then this needs to stop. But if he is guilty, then yeah, he probably needs to go to jail then. Like, so I don't understand why so many people were against going to court.
It just, to me, it seems like there's something to hide.
Well, maybe. I've always been a little suspicious.
That's just my opinion. I mean, it feels just off that you know, hey, 20 years ago, this guy did this, and, you know, I want to do something about it now.
Yeah, well, in defense of the Kick Vic thing, some of the complaints were not 20 years ago, they were several years ago. What made me raise the eyebrow is that they said, oh yeah, like this convention owner is like a witness and they should have footage of that. And every time that they went after it, none of the owners actually confirmed these stories, and we didn't have any evidence. So I think the longer it went on, the more suspicious I personally got of it. And then when Stephanie said something about Sabat and that was a rumor, and basically no one called for that to be investigated, that was extremely weird. Like extremely weird, because I mean,
well, there was a funny story about it. Stephanie had messaged me and asked me to not bring up the situation she had brought up anymore. And she said her and Chris had talked and she doesn't want to bring up the situation anymore. And after that, nobody talked about it.
Well, okay. Well, that if that's her wish, then that's her wish. So that's like I said, it was just weird. That's all I was saying. So
yeah, I gotcha.
But that's also another thing that I've noticed with these voice actors, and maybe you would know better because you talk to a lot of them. But it's like, is it just me, or does it seem like a lot of voice actors are taking this position where it's like, this is my political opinion, this is my religious or lack of religious belief, this is what I stand for, and you have to agree with all of it, or you can't be my fan, or I don't want to associate with you. From your perspective, have you experienced that a lot?
Not really. I mean,
okay.
There's maybe one voice actor who, you know, he kind of trolls people, but he does it for fun. You may have heard of him, Robbie Wrist.
Is he Booze King? No, that's Martin something. Who
he played Mikey in the original TMNT movie.
Oh, that guy. And, yeah. Oh, yeah. I know him. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's Choji in Naruto. He just jokes around. He'll post Trump memes all over his Facebook, and if somebody calls him out on it, he'll just, you know, reply back to it. You know, and in the spirit of fun, he doesn't tell him, you can't be my fan anymore. Get away from my Facebook. There was one fan that was publicly chastised, like me. This was about 2 years ago, but it wasn't by Robbie. It was by a voice actor named Chris Patton. And I think it was about the Dr. Ford case Chris publicly posted about, and it was my friend Zero Resurrected who said, well, what if he didn't do it? And then, you know, Chris Patton responds with, why do you follow me if you don't believe me? He goes, quit following me if you don't believe women, and all this and that. And then he blocked him and stuff.
Yeah, that's definitely a mature response.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, if it makes your friend feel better, I know a lot, and I got off Facebook mainly for this reason, but I saw a lot of friendships get destroyed over the Brett Kavanaugh hearings from some people who either were convinced he didn't do it or convinced he did do it, and then there were some people like me in the middle who was like, well, I did it. If we can certainly talk about it. If evidence is available, then that'd be great. I don't know how you can prove it, though. I mean, but you know, I saw a lot of friendships fall apart over things like
that. Anymore, it just it seems like, well, she said it, it must be true, and I really don't like that kind of mentality. Me, I like to, you know, look at everything, and that's just how I am. I like to analyze everything.
Right, and I like to analyze things, and I'm also a stickler for the rules. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I can't watch Law and Order, because honestly, the way they portray the detectives as going rogue and everything, and they don't follow protocol and stuff, I actually always find myself rooting for the suspects, because it's like the cops aren't doing it properly. And
yeah,
I mean, and it's funny how like a show where like you actually know that the person is the bad person, and yet you're still. Like there was, I distinctly remember this episode where they were basing it off that guy who shot all those women. He had that manifesto that basically, because the women didn't sleep with him, he was going to take his revenge on the world, and his manifesto. And Law and Order adapted that into an episode where a guy did like a very similar thing. Women wouldn't sleep with him, so he was shooting them. Well, the cops suspected him of being the killer. And we, as the audience, know he's the killer. And there was a scene in there where they walk up to him. They're like, hey, are you so-and-so? Like, yeah, who's asking? It's like, oh, we're with the, with law enforcement. Can you please come with us? And he's like, do you have a warrant? And they're like, no. It's like, well, then I really don't have time right now. It's like, well, we really think you should come. He's like, well, I'm sorry, but unless you have a warrant, I'm not going. And then and the cop was like, well, look, maybe just a minute. And he grabs the guy's shoulder. And so the kid pulls out his cell phone. He starts recording himself going like, hello, my name is so-and-so, and I am being unfairly detained by the cops who do not have a warrant. And then the cops finally back off. And I watched this scene, and it's like, it's funny because we know he's the killer, and yet they're handling this so poorly. I'm actually kind of like, well, what did you think was going to happen? Like, you have no right to force him to the police station.
Well, it's kind of like what happened with Hank in Breaking Bad, where he was trying to get Jesse to come out of that trailer or whatever.
Yeah.
The RV. And the guy says you got to have a warrant.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the way they're portraying cops now on TV is kind of wrong anymore, which I have cops in my family, so that's probably why I'm kind of a stickler for that.
Right. Well, yeah, although Breaking Bad's a pretty good show. And in Hank's defense, he did stay outside.
Until the end of that episode where he shows up at Jesse's house.
Breaking Bad's such a much better show.
There, though.
Yeah, well, he did that after he found out he had been duped and he was mad, and after he did that, then he realized he'd messed up, and he turned himself in and handed over the badge and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I love Hank, but I felt bad for him at the same time too.
Yeah. Well, Hank definitely struck me as someone who was always just trying to do the right thing. So, but anyway, so, well, before we wrap this up, just trying to think if there's any final. I guess if there's something, was there anything you learned from this situation that you would like to impart onto other people who might be trying to meet their heroes and they discover their heroes aren't as nice as you'd like them to be?
I guess the best thing I learned was, just don't be, let down from their actions. They're just actors playing a part. So you just got to remember they're human just as much as all of us.
All right. And one of the things about actors, and I kind of roll my eyes when people say this, they say, I'm surprised he's such a jerk. He's so wonderful in that show. It's like, well, yeah, he's acting. You do know that acting is basically professional pretend, right?
Yeah.
So, it's, yeah, I mean, the funny thing is I have an opposite reaction sometimes. Like, there's some people who it's like, they're really charming in movies, and then I've met them, and I won't name names, and they are total jerks in real life. And interestingly, it has the opposite effect on me. I actually admire them as actors even more because it's like, well, you fooled me. I thought I was going to be meeting someone really nice, and instead I got like the next door neighbor that I don't talk to for a reason.
Maybe we shouldn't have been surprised about Mr. Drummond. I mean, he does voice Vegeta.
Yeah. Well, that was why I titled the article like the way I did. So anyway, well, thank you, Mr. Sarcasm, for coming on and explaining the situation and your take on it. And I'm just curious, but I guess on final note, I'm just curious, like how many has this affected your relationship with voice actors, or are they still pretty happy to receive their t-shirts and mugs?
Oh, most of them that I talked to, they're still happy. In fact, I just made a mug for both Richard Epcar and Bo Billingsley, and they're super excited about getting it. They said they don't really care about what's on my Twitter page, as long as it's not racially offensive and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, we all know that people can definitely have different opinions on what's sensitive material, as you found out. Like you posted tweets where it's like you just question some things, like, well, is this true? Can we prove it? And for some people, that's like, well, if you don't automatically believe it, then that's, whereas I take the position of, it's like, well, no, that doesn't mean you are saying they're wrong. You're just saying you would like more proof before you jump.
It just means you're questioning authority.
Right. So anyway, well, I'm glad that you're still getting a lot of happy customers. It's a shame that Brian Drummond passed up on such a nice gift over, in my opinion, pretty petty reasons. And I think he also just had to save face at that point. Like, he had made such a public spectacle of it that if he were to back down at this point, because that, unfortunately, and we could do like a whole different episode of this, cancel culture is a very real thing on Twitter. And I use Twitter to contact people like you, share my videos, but otherwise I don't engage with Twitter that much because it's not reality, but it feels like reality when you're on it. So it's a shame that this spiraled out of control the way it did, but now at least he apologized to you personally, and you consider the matter closed, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I consider it's done and over with.
Okay, yeah. So unless he says something else, I have no other reason to talk about it anymore. Just wanted to get your side of the story and all of this. Now, for everyone who is watching this, you can follow Mr. Sarcasm on Twitter and check out his work there. And you can also check out other videos that I do here at The Failed Journalist. You can comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe. And as always, flame responsibly. Thank you once again for being here, Mr. Sarcasm.
You're very welcome.
All right. Thank you. And all of you folks out there, you have a good day.